What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Cowboys Reality Check, the channel that keeps it real, keeps it thorough, and never lets you miss a beat when it comes to America's team. If you're a die-hard Cowboys fan, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Smash that like button, drop a comment below with your thoughts, and share this video with every Cowboys fan in your life, because what we are covering today is not just another off-season rumor. This is the kind of news that stops you mid-scroll and makes you sit up straight. So get comfortable because we're about to break this thing wide open. The Dallas Cowboys are reportedly working on signing Bradley Chubb. Let that sink in for a moment. Bradley Chubb, one of the most devastating edge rushers this league has seen when healthy, potentially suiting up in silver and blue. And if this deal crosses the finish line the way it appears to be heading, we could be looking at the most dominant, most terrifying defense in the entire National Football League. That is not hyperbole. That is not fan enthusiasm overriding logic. That is a sober, football-first assessment of what this roster would look like if this signing becomes official. And today, we're going to break down every layer of it. The player, the fit, the finances, the impact, and what it means for this franchise's championship window. Because this story deserves more than a headline. It deserves the full treatment. Let us start with Bradley Chubb himself. Because if you're newer to the channel or you have not been following the league closely, you need to understand exactly who this man is and what he brings to a football team. Chubb was selected by the Denver Broncos with the 5th overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft out of North Carolina State, where he was nothing short of a nightmare for offensive linemen across the ACC. He entered the league with elite length, elite bend around the edge, and a first-step quickness that simply could not be taught. And from the jump, he delivered on that 5th overall pedigree. In his rookie season, Chubb recorded 12 sacks, announced himself as a legitimate force in the NFL, and immediately looked like a cornerstone pass rusher who would be terrorizing quarterbacks for the next decade. His time in Denver had its ups and downs. Injuries disrupted what could have been an even more dominant run, but the talent was never in question. When Chubb was on the field and operating at full capacity, he was as good as any edge rusher in this league. The Denver front office ultimately made the decision to deal him to the Miami Dolphins, and in South Beach, he continued to flash that elite-level ability whenever his body allowed it. And that is the critical part of this story, the part that explains both why he is available and why the Cowboys are in position to make this move. Chubb suffered a significant knee injury during his time with Miami. The kind of injury that forces a franchise to make hard, pragmatic decisions about its roster construction. The Dolphins moved on, and in doing so, they inadvertently handed the Cowboys a window of opportunity that the organization appears determined to climb through. When a player of Bradley Chubb's caliber enters the open market, even coming off injury, even with questions surrounding his health, contenders line up, because the talent ceiling is that high. And the Cowboys, by all indications, are not just in that line. They are at the front of it. And when you think about this from a purely football standpoint, it makes complete and total sense. Now let us talk about what the Cowboys already have on that defense, because context matters enormously here. This was not a barren unit in desperate need of a savior. The Cowboys were already fielding a talented, dangerous, multi-layered defense heading into this offseason. They have playmakers at every level, in the secondary, at linebacker, and along the defensive front. This was already a group capable of making life miserable for opposing offenses. But the addition of Bradley Chubb does not just improve this defense. It transforms it. It elevates it into a different conversation entirely. Because at the center of everything this Dallas defense does is Micah Parsons. And if we're being completely honest with ourselves, Micah Parsons might be the best defensive player in the National Football League right now, full stop. Since the moment he arrived in Dallas as the 12th overall pick in 2021, Parsons has been a one-man chaos engine on that defensive front. He rushes the passer. He drops into coverage. He plays the run. He shifts alignments, confuses blocking assignments, and makes offensive coordinators lose sleep on Thursday nights. He is the kind of generational talent that franchises spend decades praying for. The sort of player who fundamentally changes what is possible on your side of the football. He is a walking problem with no clean solution. And right now, as dominant as he is, opposing offenses can at least attempt to account for him. They can slide protection his way. They can chip him with a tight end or a back coming out of the backfield. They can scheme around him, roll the pocket away from him, or simply dedicate so many blocking resources to his side of the field that they leave the rest of the defense shorthanded. That is not ideal for the Cowboys, but it is a reality that every great player faces. The very best players get schemed against. That is how the league works. But now, imagine Bradley Chubb on the opposite side. All of a sudden, that sliding protection has to make a choice. That extra chip has to pick a side. That additional blocker designated to neutralize Parsons now has to weigh whether leaving Chubb in a one-on-one situation is an acceptable trade-off. And the answer, almost every single time, is no. There is no clean solution when both of those players are on the field simultaneously. You cannot double-team both of them. It is a physical impossibility. Someone is getting a one-on-one matchup on every snap. And these are two players who can win one-on-one against any offensive lineman in the league on any given play. The math simply does not work in the offense's favor, and that is exactly what the Cowboys are banking on. Think about the scheme possibilities alone. Head coach Brian Schottenheimer is going to be working with a defensive unit capable of creating pressure in ways that keep coordinators up at night. You can line Parsons and Chubb up on the same side and dare the offense to adjust on the fly. You can split them wide and force the line to account for threats on both edges simultaneously. You can drop one of them into coverage, using their athleticism to clog throwing lanes, while the other one charges free. You can bring both on a blitz and simply unleash everything the defense has on a quarterback who suddenly has nowhere to escape. The creativity available in this system with both of those players on the field is nearly limitless, and that is a genuinely terrifying thing for the 31 other franchises in this league to contemplate. And the benefits ripple out far beyond just those two players. When a defense generates consistent quarterback pressure, when a signal caller is in genuine distress on almost every drop back, the secondary becomes exponentially more effective. Corners who are good become great. Safeties who are solid become playmakers. Because a quarterback under duress is a quarterback who cannot go through his full progression, who cannot hold the ball and wait for his second and third reads to develop, who cannot stand calmly in the pocket and deliver precise throws into tight windows. Pressure breeds errors. It forces early throws, inaccurate balls, panic decisions. It creates interceptions, fumbles, sacks, and incompletions. Every defensive back on this roster gets better the moment that pass rush becomes elite. And adding Bradley Chubb to a front that already features Micah Parsons moves this unit from excellent to genuinely elite in the pressure generation department. Now, let us address the financial dimension of this because it is a legitimate and important piece of the conversation. Dallas does not have unlimited resources, and some will raise the question of how the Cowboys can responsibly pursue a player of Chubb's profile, given where their cap situation stands. And the answer is actually more encouraging than you might expect, because Chubb is not entering this market as a fully healthy, proven commodity fresh off a dominant season. He is coming in as a player working his way back from a serious knee injury, and that reality meaningfully shapes his market value. Teams that might have been willing to pay top-of-market money for Chubb at his prime are going to approach this situation with more caution. And that creates an opening for Dallas to structure a deal that is favorable, one that gives Chubb a platform and a path to earn significant money if he performs, while protecting the Cowboys' cap flexibility in the near term. The Cowboys front office has developed a genuine expertise in this area over recent seasons. They have shown creativity with contract structures, with timing, with incentive-laden deals that protect the team while rewarding players for performance. This is exactly the kind of situation where that expertise becomes an asset. A well-structured deal for Bradley Chubb could give Dallas an elite talent at a below-market rate in the base years, with escalators that reward him if he dominates the way everyone knows he can. That is smart roster building. That is how contenders stay competitive over multiple seasons without mortgaging their future on a single move. Yes, the injury history is the obvious counterpoint, and it deserves to be taken seriously because this is not a player with a minor, isolated injury on his medical chart. Bradley Chubb has battled significant physical setbacks, and a knee injury that ended his time in Miami was a serious one. Any honest conversation about this signing has to include that risk, and the Cowboys' medical and scouting staffs are going to be extraordinarily thorough in their evaluation before anything is finalized. They will study the imaging. They will conduct their own physicals. They will talk to trainers, consultants, and specialists. And if those evaluations come back indicating that Chubb's recovery is on track, that the knee is structurally sound and his athleticism is intact, then the calculus here is not even close. The upside is so catastrophically high that accepting a measured level of injury risk is not just reasonable. It is the correct football decision. Because when Bradley Chubb is healthy and operating at full capacity, he is a top 5 edge rusher in this league. That is not a hope or a projection. That is a documented, verified reality based on what we have seen from him at his best. And in today's NFL, where the premium on elite pass rushing talent has never been higher, adding a player of that caliber at a discount, even with a risk attached, is the kind of move that great front offices make. It is calculated aggression. It is understanding that the potential reward dramatically outweighs the potential downside, especially on a short-term, incentive-structured deal. Let us zoom out for a moment and think about the broader competitive picture, because the Cowboys do not operate in a vacuum. They play in the NFC, which has become one of the most loaded conferences in recent memory. The Philadelphia Eagles remain a formidable force. There are teams throughout this conference with quarterbacks, weapons, and offensive systems capable of putting massive numbers on the board. And the Cowboys understand, because the evidence has been overwhelming, that in order to win in the postseason, in order to navigate a deep playoff run and reach the Super Bowl, you need a defense capable of stopping elite offenses when the margin for error disappears entirely. In the playoffs, the separation between winning and losing shrinks to almost nothing. Games are decided by turnovers, by third down stops, by the ability of your defense to make one more play than the other team's offense in the fourth quarter. And defenses that generate elite pressure are the ones best positioned to force those kinds of moments. They create the turnovers. They force the incompletions on 3rd and 7. They pin quarterbacks to the turf at critical moments and swing momentum irrevocably in their team's direction. The Cowboys have experienced firsthand what happens when a defense cannot consistently get off the field and cannot consistently affect the quarterback. They have watched opposing offenses carve them up in games that mattered. And this signing, if it happens, is a direct response to that reality. It is the organization saying clearly and loudly that those days are over. There's also something to be said about what a move like this signals to the rest of the locker room and to the rest of the league. When you bring in a player of Bradley Chubb's pedigree, it does not just add talent to your depth chart. It sends a message. It tells your current players that the organization is serious about winning, that ownership and the front office are willing to be aggressive, willing to accept risk, willing to make the kinds of bold moves that championship teams make. That kind of culture shift matters. Players feel it. They respond to it. And when a locker room believes that the front office is pulling every lever available to put a winning team on the field, that belief translates into the kind of collective effort and cohesion that makes good teams great. And let us not lose sight of what this means specifically for Micah Parsons, because his individual trajectory is worth addressing directly. Parsons has been operating at a superstar level while absorbing a disproportionate share of opposing offense's attention. Every coordinator has a Parsons plan. Every offensive line coach spends the week game planning around his alignment and his tendencies. That is just the reality of being the most dangerous player on the field. The opponent dedicates serious resources to making your job harder. With Chubb drawing legitimate attention from the opposite side, Parsons is going to see matchups he has never seen before. Cleaner rushes, more favorable angles, one-on-one situations against tackles who simply cannot afford to get help because the guy across from them is just as dangerous. If you thought Micah Parsons was dominant before this signing, his production could reach a completely different level with Bradley Chubb on the field beside him. And that is an absolutely wild thing to contemplate. Cowboys fans, the honest truth is this. You have been waiting for a moment like this for a long time. You have watched this franchise navigate stretches of offensive brilliance undermined by defensive inconsistency. You have watched talented rosters fall short in January because they could not make the plays that matter most when stakes are highest. And now you're watching a front office build something that looks genuinely different, something that looks built for the moment that Cowboys Nation has been waiting years to experience again. The signing of Bradley Chubb, if finalized, is not just a roster addition. It is a declaration. It is the Cowboys telling the rest of the NFC, telling the entire NFL that they are not interested in being good. They are building toward great. They are assembling the kind of defense that opposing offenses dread, the kind of unit that legends are made of, the kind of defensive front that gets talked about decades from now when people reminisce about the teams that changed what was possible on that side of the football. And yes, there is still uncertainty here. The deal has not been signed. The medicals need to clear. The contract structure needs to make sense. But the direction is clear, the intention is obvious, and if this comes together the way it appears to be heading, this Cowboys roster is about to become something genuinely special. So I want to hear from you right now. Drop in the comments below. Do you believe Bradley Chubb is the piece this defense needs to ascend from very good to all-time? How many combined sacks do you think Parsons and Chubb put up together in a full season? Is the injury risk a deal breaker for you? But does the upside make it an easy call? Let us have that conversation, because that is what this community is for. And before you go anywhere, make sure you're subscribed to Cowboys Reality Check. Hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when we drop the next breakdown. Smash the like button if this video gave you something to think about, and share it with every Cowboys fan you know. Because this is the kind of news that deserves to travel fast, and the people around you need to be in this conversation. As always, this is Cowboys Reality Check, and we will see you